Adolescence is a period of profound brain development, marked by rapid changes in neural architecture, connectivity, and function. Developmental neuroscience increasingly shows that these changes make young brains particularly vulnerable to hyperpalatable, ultra-processed foods, products engineered to maximize sugar, fat, salt, and flavor intensity. These foods are not just tasty treats, they're designed to hijack reward pathways, and during adolescence, when the brain's regulatory systems are still maturing, the effects can be especially harmful. The combination of heightened reward sensitivity and immature impulse control creates a perfect storm for overeating, poor dietary decision-making, and long-term metabolic and behavioral consequences. One critical aspect of adolescent brain development is the maturation of the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for executive functions such as planning, self-regulation, and impulse control. During the teenage years, the prefrontal cortex is still under construction. Synaptic pruning, myelination, and refinement of neural networks are ongoing, which means the ability to resist immediate rewards, delay gratification, or make long-term health-conscious choices is limited. Meanwhile, the limbic system, including structures such as the nucleus accumbens and amygdala, is highly active and sensitive to rewards. Hyperpalatable foods exploit this imbalance by delivering rapid, intense stimulation to the reward system. For adolescents, the brain's natural wiring favors immediate pleasure over long-term consequence, making it far easier to overconsume ultra-processed foods despite knowing the potential risks. Dopamine pathways play a central role in this vulnerability. Hyperpalatable foods produce exaggerated dopamine release, reinforcing the association between taste, pleasure, and reward. In a developing brain, repeated exposure can strengthen these pathways, increasing the desire for immediate, high-intensity rewards and diminishing sensitivity to normal levels of natural pleasure from whole foods. Adolescents can thus become neurologically conditioned to prefer ultra-processed foods, creating cravings that are difficult to resist and that can persist into adulthood. This is not merely a matter of habit. It is a neurological reshaping of reward circuits that biases the brain toward repeated overconsumption. Impulse control is another critical factor. Because the prefrontal cortex is still developing, adolescents are less capable of overriding strong reward signals from hyperpalatable foods. Situations that demand self-regulation, such as late-night snacking, choosing between a candy bar and a fruit, or resisting peer pressure to consume fast food, place a high cognitive load on an immature regulatory system. Over time, repeated exposure to highly engineered foods can reinforce impulsive eating patterns, weaken the development of self-control mechanisms, and make it more difficult to establish healthy eating habits. Even when adolescents are cognitively aware of the negative consequences, the neurological drive for reward often overrides rational decision-making. The consequences of this vulnerability extend beyond immediate overeating. Adolescents exposed to frequent hyperpalatable food intake are more likely to develop metabolic stress, including insulin resistance, abdominal fat accumulation, and dysregulated hunger signaling. The altered reward circuitry can also affect emotional regulation. Reliance on food for pleasure may increase vulnerability to mood disorders, stress-related eating, and compulsive consumption. Because the adolescent brain is particularly plastic, these patterns can become entrenched, creating lasting preferences for highly processed foods and setting the stage for chronic diet-related disease in adulthood. Environmental and social factors exacerbate these neurological vulnerabilities. Adolescents live in an ecosystem saturated with ultra-processed options: school cafeterias, vending machines, fast food outlets, and social media marketing all promote hyperpalatable products. Peer influence, advertising, and the ready availability of these foods further tip the balance toward consumption, exploiting the mismatch between a hyper-responsive reward system and an underdeveloped prefrontal cortex. The result is a structural advantage for the food industry. Engineered foods dominate choice architecture and exploit normal developmental processes in ways that can have lifelong consequences. The warning is stark. Young brains are not just easily tempted, they are neurologically predisposed to overconsume hyperpalatable foods. The combination of an immature prefrontal cortex, highly sensitive reward pathways, and ongoing neural plasticity makes adolescence a critical window during which food preferences, cravings, and impulsive eating patterns can be hardwired. Exposure to ultra-processed foods during this period does more than provide excess calories. It reshapes reward circuits, undermines impulse control, and establishes behavioral and metabolic vulnerabilities that persist well into adulthood. For parents, educators, and policymakers, this underscores the urgent need to recognize adolescence as a high-risk period and to implement strategies that limit exposure, promote healthier alternatives, and support the development of self-regulatory capacities before these patterns become entrenched.